Hello, my name is Mark DiCarlo. Tonight my guest is Mr. Mark Garcia, a local attorney. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
So we'll name this the Two Mark Show. So, what kind of areas do you practice in?
I practice felonies, family law, some personal injury, some probate, general practice really, but mainly felonies and family law.
Why don't you do misdemeanors? Not exciting enough, or what's this?
It's just I don't handle a lot of criminal law. I'm able to pick and choose cases because I want my life to be serene.
Not me.
So
I'm like a crazy man, right? I take in all kinds of cases, and if they've got the money, usually they've got themselves a criminal lawyer.
Yeah, I just like to focus on felonies. And everything's a felony these days, pretty much anyway.
What do you mean by that?
Well, since the state jail felony came out, 4th degree felony. Remember, in the old days, there never was a 4th degree felony.
Right.
You had 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and minor drug possession or whatever was misdemeanors. But then came out with state jail felony, and that affected a lot of people that wouldn't be felons otherwise.
So, you're implying you don't think that's good?
It's terrible. It's terrible. Look how many people have been locked up since that has come into play. Minimum mandatory sentencing on all these things, and now they're seeing the wisdom of it, saying it was a mistake. It is wrong.
I heard there was a political reason for creating the state jail felony or something. So in the governor at that time, Ann Richards, and she could say the number of felonies decreased or something. I don't know if that's strictly speaking.
Oh, that would be terrible if she did it to get elected. Because I remember that race, hotly contested. Are you soft on the death penalty? Crime became a big issue, and they're saying she was soft on things. So, man, I could see that. But that would be
well, what's very upsetting, of course, now the right wing, and I think it started, I'll give you my opinion, probably before your time. George Wallace, Get Tough on Crime, which was was arguably a kind of a implied racist.
You look at the source, George Wallace, to tell you.
And with his remarks, and then it got picked up by Nixon. So you had whatever it was, over 30 years of get tough on crime, reduce this right, reduce that right, reduce this civil liberty and that civil liberty, to where and now you have some far right wingers and militia groups saying, well, where are our rights? Where are our rights? Well, hey, look, it's your contingent party for years that has been for the repeal of these rights. Now you're complaining you don't think you have any. So
well, I tell my friends, I go, y'all are the new. You're the new Negroes, the white guy out there. How do you like it? Now you're seeing what other people have been seeing all along. You're the new Negroes. Start seeing spirituals. I tell them, it's your only way out. You need to pay for the sins of the past at some point.
Well, and I practiced during a lot of this time. Of course, I wasn't practicing under Nixon, but this stuff went back for years and years. Having said that, I was very impressed that I'm assuming that our representatives at the state level, it's all Republican. They did pass that Morton Act. Isn't that called the Morton Act?
Michael Morton, yes.
Because Michael Morton and which basically said, look, you have to give all of this evidence to the defense attorney, correct?
Yes, but you recall it was like that before. Most DAs had an open file policy where you'd get to see everything that they had, and they would give you everything. Brady versus Maryland has protected that right forever. If the prosecutor has evidence that sort of exculpates your client or means your client's not so bad, they're supposed to give you that material. And a lot of
Nueces County was always pretty good about that since I've been practicing. Not all the counties.
No, not all, and especially in the Morton case, it was egregious. It's criminal what the sheriff and the DA did to the man.
I don't know are you up on the case well enough to explain to the audience what happened or on that Morton Act? I know the little I read about it, I think that this man who was innocent was incarcerated for 25 years in prison and was innocent.
Correct. Yeah, totally innocent. 27 years, I think. The man was at work. His wife, a drifter, murders his wife, and right away, the husband is always the primary suspect in these cases where a spouse is murdered, and they started looking at him real hard. But there was evidence to support the fact that he wasn't. A handkerchief was left in the alley where cigarette butts, where obviously was watching the house, watching the woman, and he was convicted and sent to prison because the sheriff not only withheld evidence, they actually may have even created evidence against the guy. And the sheriff's now dead. The district attorney has been punished as a result of all this. Lost his law license, can no longer practice law for one, but is still a grave injustice. This man suffers, I think, 27 years that he was incarcerated total, and that's just a grave injustice. Nothing will ever get that back from him, and he seems happy. That's the other thing. And he's
so some of the men that have been persecuted like that, have been in prison for many years, do seem rather
not
at
pissed
peace
off
or
enough.
something.
Yeah, not upset enough.
Well, you probably reach a point where you said as mad as you should be, your sanity would be at stake. So
well, he found the Lord. According to him, it's his Christianity and spiritualism. He found the Lord, and so he is practicing what he's preaching. And it's true that give him the other cheek. If somebody offends you, you take it like that, and it's admirable.
Well, I don't know about that though. I always read that biblical passage. It's kind of a fine point. They say, I think Christ says, and if they ask you for forgiveness, you should forgive. But if they don't ask for forgiveness, I don't know if you're supposed to forgive them. That's kind of a theological fine point there.
I think Jesus of Nazareth was a funny guy and a smart person, and he had fun with people. He'd like that rich guy. He's like, go sell all your stuff, give it to the poor. And then, he'd like to pick on a lot of people and have fun with them, I believe. And
well, that's an interesting angle.
Yeah, and I think on that case, I think in that instance where he's talking about turning the other cheek, it means like eventually you're going to get tired of that and you will rise up and you will fulfill the law of Moses, which is an eye for an eye. But it's going to take you getting beat up a few times before you get angry enough to do it. So he's trying to motivate people in a reverse way, saying, no, you turn the other cheek, love your neighbor, love, all this. But he's really saying, yeah, see how long you put up with that before you finally recognize
you think
what's
so?
going on.
I never heard that angle on that.
Yeah,
I don't know that I haven't heard it, so I don't know that I agree or disagree.
Well, sure, the Lord's a smart guy.
Well, I do think that the New Testament is complex. It's obviously covered up or not discussed. He did arm himself. He did arm himself on that last day before the Judas betrayal. He did arm himself
with a whip. You mean?
Well, he said he took up knives.
I never saw the Lord as armed.
Well, he did take up arms. Okay. And his knives.
Well, he did
and then
have
he said that's enough. So
good for him.
But then it appeared that they were out. They're outmanned. There were too many people that came to get him, so there was nothing done. So that is a complicated discussion. But regarding that previous discussion, in the Hannah Overton case, wasn't that overturned because allegedly, and for the people who don't know, Hannah Overton was a woman who had some sort of, was she a foster parent primarily? Yes. And then she had a number of children under her purvey. And then I think there was some indication she was affiliated with the church, and then a child died of some sort of a pepper drink, and the child died, and then she was convicted and given life in prison. And I think, didn't they say, isn't that why that was overturned, the Hannah Overton case, because of some allegedly because of some holding back on some piece of evidence? Is that correct or incorrect? Do you remember?
I think it is correct, but there was new evidence discovered that was not allowed in, and the motion for new trial or whatever they didn't allow it. I think that had something to do with it, but there were numerous grounds. The attorney for the state even came out and said, I was high, I was on drugs, I was, while I was prosecuting this case. I don't remember very much of it.
That?
I can't remember her name.
Well, I remember the prosecutor.
Normally,
I know the name of that prosecutor, but in the context of what you're saying, I don't want to.
She even stated those things when she would say to ask her questions. She'd say, "I can't remember." Well, why can't you remember? Well, this is the reason I can't remember. I was sedated, or things of that nature. Like just another travesty of justice. Like,
but let me ask you this: I tried a big case around that time with that prosecutor in that court, and I wasn't satisfied with our due process rights. I wonder, but I had a client who came from a more much lower socioeconomic background than did Hannah Overton, and there wasn't a virtual army appealing that case to get it reversed. So I think that, don't you think sometimes that in that case, your opinion, don't you think sometimes Hannah Overton being able to eventually get justice was a product of her having some sort of money and influence?
Being a white woman does not guarantee that you'll have justice. We executed that white woman when it was under Bush. She wrote all these beautiful letters. And
I thought that was awful.
I saw that. I was like, man, there's no guarantee in America anymore. But in Hannah Overton's case, that child the foster child had a disorder. He would just eat massive amounts of salt or anything. He would just, that's what he would do. So he needed constant supervision. And she had cameras set up around the house, in the kitchen and whatnot, to watch him. But she's taking a nap at this point. She was taking a nap. And I do believe the version of that's what actually transpired was that child got into the cupboard and started ingesting massive amounts of salt. And he died from a sodium type poisoning. And there was problems with the autopsy where some of that evidence was not released to the defense. Because that's a sound theory, and it's sort of a new, something new in medicine, or that they're recently discovering.
I think the prosecution argument was she gave people some sort of a pepper thing for punishment, though.
Sure.
But
did they do that? Have you ever? My mom never got me with that.
Well, let me say this. I never heard of that. Well, wait a minute.
Take your medicine, boy.
They'd say castor oil was a punishment.
Take your medicine, son. I've seen that on westerns, but gotta take a good old spank on the bottom. But yeah, that seems that's torturous. Like to make a kid drink a concoction that is so spicy to cause pain. That's barbaric,
I don't know that she denied that, though, that she used that as a form of punishment.
No, she did use forms of punishment of that nature, but they did seem to exaggerate it to such a point where, golly. And waterboarding at that time wasn't legal, so you can't be doing that back then. Nowadays, you probably get away with it if you could show the kid was a terrorist or somehow affiliated.
Now anybody's a terrorist. They just have to say there's no criteria. There's an anonymous board. They say you're a terrorist, and I guess they can come waterboard.
It's disgusting.
Right?
The attorneys generals should be.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. They're saying,
yeah.
Any day I'm waiting, right?
You're not a prisoner of war. You're an enemy combatant. None of these rules and regulations of treaties that have been thought out with wisdom, they don't apply to you. They can just. It's despicable what America really has become in the past 20 or 30 years.
And
torturing.
It's kind of like what we were saying at the beginning. When people were saying, "Oh, we got to get tough on crime. We got to get tough on crime and get rid of these protections." Well, sooner or later, like I said,
you got to get tough on crime, but you can't.
You don't know when they're going to come after you. And you don't know when they're going to come after you regarding some of these, the Patriot Act, et cetera.
The protections were well thought out, too. I mean, the Founding Fathers were geniuses. I mean, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, it's there for a reason to be first. Second one is, hey, you have the right to bear arms to protect yourself. I mean, that's self-defense is God-given right. How can anybody take that away from you? The cops are not going to get to my ranch on time to save anybody's life. They're going to get
there. You could defend yourself in front of a cop, and they'll just come and drop a bomb on your house.
Cops, there's a lot of good cops. I don't know. But the good cops are not good anymore because they protect the bad cop. They protect their brother. Lawyers do defend lawyers a lot of times, and it happens in professions where.
Do you think we do?
Oh yeah, I think so. There's a couple of sharks out there that are, eat you and try to kill you to get you out of the way or whatever, but through greed. But yeah, people protect their own, and that's natural. It's a natural occurrence. But with the police, it's they have a duty to enforce the laws, and that cop, you have a bad cop breaking the laws. I mean, that makes the analysis. It changes the analysis. A good cop becomes a bad cop simply because the bad cop is being a bad cop and the good cop's letting him.
We just had on Ray McMurray, who's president of the local teachers union. And we talked about that. I didn't mention to him. That's another thing. The right wing is always anti-union, but then where it comes to the unionization of the police officers, and then these abuses, they're always defending the police officers, whatever these alleged shootings, et cetera, abuses are taking place, but they won't say, well, maybe it's a function of the union protecting all these officers.
Yeah, and I noticed that too. The cop is never wrong, and there just can never be wrong in a shooting incident where, hey, wait a minute, let's look at the facts and see what happened before we make the assumption or whatever that he's never wrong.
Can you it reminds me, I think of that James Bond quote, he has a license to kill. Is anybody supposed to have a license to kill? I mean, is that what's coming?
My dad, who is a Wells Fargo banker all his life, is convinced that lawyers have licenses to steal. A lot of people think
he should know that's not true now by experiences with you, right?
Well, being a lawyer can be a very lucrative business. There's no doubt about it. You can make a lot of money legitimately in a very quick fashion, where other places you can't do that.
Well, you were relating an experience that you had with another lawyer that had gotten rich very quickly, but I must say, A, he might have been lucky, B, and or aggressive. lucky and or aggressive, and C, very good, or a combination of them all. But I know so many lawyers that at my age have like literally nothing.
Hand to mouth. I've
Right.
seen, yeah, sure.
Literally
hard
nothing,
to
and they've
make
worked
it.
very hard.
Yes, they have.
And one of the things that Mr. McMurray had said, that beginning school teachers in Oasis County started $45,000 to $46,000 a year, and of course they have the time off, and they don't, they have the time off in the summers, et cetera. I said, well, I don't think our DA's office starts our assistant DA's office at that amount of money. So I guess I'm telling your father. Maybe we'll have your father. I said,
Oh,
look,
yeah.
what do you say? What are you giving your son a hard
Yeah.
time for? The kid, bro.
Well, you know how bankers are. They're more banking. That industry has changed more than any other industry in America.
Yeah, tell him to quit looting.
We used to have small
Tell your
town.
dad we want him to quit ripping everybody off, and we're not going to give him any
Well,
more
he's
bailouts.
retired now,
Bailouts.
but I'm sure
I'm
he
just
would have a
teasing.
good defense there from Wells Fargo. It's like, but in the old days, you remember, you went to the bank, they'd loan you money. It's to go start a business. You got to be rich to borrow money today.
You know, when I started my practice many years ago, I contacted a bank to borrow some money or something.
They laugh you out of there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think I might have just called them or something. They said, well, no, you're just starting from just nothing. Thanks.
Sure, you're a lawyer.
Thank you. Well, and I don't think I had very little student loans, so it wasn't like.
You were all right. You were in good shape. That's a problem. A lot of law students, they get out there saddled with debt, and they go to law school to want to make changes, to help people, whatnot. Then they get out and they're saddled with this debt, and they change. They're not necessarily there to help.
Maybe it's a form of social control. Maybe it's done on purpose.
I think they should. Well, with Obama, he's going to allow people to go to school free. Maybe they'll let you go to law school for free now in America.
But I think isn't that just at the community colleges or something?
Yeah, free community college, which is great. But I mean, someone has to pay for it. Somebody has to pay for it. So.
Well, and then a friend of mine taught in the community colleges on the East Coast, and he doesn't have a high opinion of the. Did you know the community college system? I haven't researched this, but according to him, it's like a national system.
Oh, I didn't know. I attended
other words, it's not
community
like-
college.
Pardon me?
I went to a community college one semester.
Which one?
ACC, all can come. Austin Community College in Austin, Texas. I took.
What was your experience?
It was, well, we registered in a barn, like a show barn. This was before the internet. This was back in 1988, prior to the internet, where you had to actually go register and stand in line and talk to people. And I liked it. I mean, I went the first day, I went the last day. I got a C. You know what I mean?
Well, this friend of mine, he represents, they accept anybody in the community college, even if they know they're not going to pass the course. And then, of course, a lot of times, many of these students get these degrees, and the school is well aware that they're never going to be able to use them.
I believe it. I believe it.
There's a lot of exploitation in the community college system. I don't know if that's...
I believe it. I just see the youth of today, they don't even aspire to go to college, that there's just not a large enrollment anyway. So why not give it away for free? Because they're lacking the student body. It just doesn't exist. You'll see people, high school, I mean, they're not graduating high school. Amazing, incredible numbers. Like, they're dropping out, getting GEDs or not getting anything.
Here, in this community, a lot of GEDs, I think, correct?
And yes.
And that was obviously passed to try to give people that dropped out of high school a step into the system, and now it seems like it's being abused when they're just dropping out. Well, I get my GED, it's not a
I
big
think
deal.
the youth are realizing before the adults that, hey, there's no guarantee anymore. I can go to college, I can do all those things and not make it in America. And
You can
right.
do 100% not make it. And you know what one secret is they don't tell you? And I've noticed this for years. You can get, if you're from Sinton, Texas, and you get a degree, that degree in almost anything besides school teaching is worth nothing unless you're willing to move to Houston, San Antonio, or Dallas or something. So,
Yes.
they give you this degree, but they don't represent the social changes that you're going to have to make in order to market that degree.
Well, I went to Baylor, and Baylor recognizes that. They're real good at that. They're not only, once you get your degree, then they'll place you,
Oh, that's
they'll find you a job. They take care of you after the fact, too.
As an undergrad?
Undergrad, yeah, they do
right?
have placement.
That's
they help you if you seek it. It's not something that they just give to every graduating student, but you have to go and ask them.
So you went to Baylor undergrad. Where'd you go to law school?
Baylor, yeah, it's the only law school in Texas, isn't it?
Yeah,
Baylor?
that's the only
I
one.
think so.
I didn't go there, but
Well, it's no.
So
okay.
So you had a lot of money. Went to Baylor undergrad, and so you're a rich kid.
Well,
huh?
yeah, it did. It cost a little bit back then, but I was able to.
I couldn't.
Yeah, they give loans. I borrowed a lot of money because they, hey, you're going to be a lawyer. They'll loan you lots of money. And so I had, I'd go to Dallas and go shopping.
Well, I think you're a new generation. I went to law school like 80. I started in 81. So, back then I would tell you that I did, one of the things that worked out real well for me, law school then was very inexpensive in Texas, at the public schools. It was very, very inexpensive. And of course, there were a lot of law clerking jobs and too in Houston in particular. Lucrative. Yeah, so that was good. That was very fortunate. Now I understand. I don't know about Houston, but generally I don't think there are that many law clerking jobs available. A lot of
you don't see it like you used to. I mean, I remember you used to hear of that position, the law clerk. Like, man, they were going to get this job, and what do? Well, they're on Lake Travis all summer, partying like in the
I didn't have that kind of
money. It's like
I had a job like where I would sit in a room and do briefs, man. Summary judgments, that's like really work, right?
Right.
And it was about a 27 million firm there in Houston. One of the reasons that we came on is someone that helps us with the show, Mr. Trejo. I'm just teasing because how I pronounced his name earlier. He said that you've read a lot of over the years about something pretty close to home here regarding drug cartels, problems in Mexico, CIA involvement in drugs. A lot of this kind of problems that we see, things that we read about, corruption, and I know in the Valley, just recently, for example, I guess that's technically the Rio Grande Valley along the Texas border, there was a shooting and they're telling people not to go into Mexico at all right now, even in Progreso, et cetera, in the Harlingen area. So I understand you've read a great deal about this subject.
Yeah, I'm a political science major, from Baylor. I mean, I've always studied the politics, the drug trafficking. It's very much a part of the politics, the political culture here. So it's something that's always not just fascinated me, but it's just something that I've always been interested in for reasons of it's what I do. I look at those things. And being a criminal defense attorney, I represent drug traffickers or people. I do a lot of search and seizure law. I like to do that. I don't like rape, murder, those types. I try to avoid those cases, but drug trafficking, is important to me because it affects my rights. I go to travel to the Valley. Now I got this checkpoint I got to come through, and there's people there. And when I was a child or a kid, I come through that checkpoint. It was a little trailer with one agent. He'd open the door and wave you through, And now it's a small community out there, and agents, I don't know how many hundreds. It's big business to these guys, and man, it affects my rights, And
you refer to the checkpoint just as way of explanation. If you're coming up from like the Valley in South Texas, you come up along two ways. It's 77 and
281.
And 281, and they both have border checkpoints wherein border patrolmen are checking your vehicle and are asking you. What they usually ask me 9 times out of 10 is, "Are you a United States citizen?"
Sí.
And I say, I'm going to start saying sí.
Claro que sí.
See what happens, and then.
Don't I look it?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm sure that they're well, street wisdom. What kind of vehicle are you driving? What do you look like? Your age, your dress. I'm certain there's a lot of clues.
Well, that's profiling. But they recognize things on the vehicle itself, how the bumper, how the level of the tires. They're trained in things that I'm so unaware of, still ignorant. I was like, how do y'all know which truck has the money? How do y'all get lucky like that? Do you have information from the inside? Well, sometimes we'll know. They'll say we have intelligence, but other times it's the position of the bumper or how high off the ground the suspension is. Little idiosyncrasies like that in vehicles, because all vehicles are made alike. And then the traffickers will change them, or the weight will weigh the vehicle down. Things of that, they pick up on those things. Federal agents they're intelligent individuals. I mean, they're federal agents. They're doing a good.
Really, officer, are you an expert? Are you an expert regarding telling? Did you go to school for that, sir? Just joking.
Yeah, they'll pull you out the window through the whether it's open or closed.
Are you an expert? Like, do you meet the Daubert versus Merrill standards?
We can get so far with that. I've been lucky. May we search your vehicle? Well, no. No, we may not search your vehicle, or no, we may, because they're confused. They're not ever told.
Have they asked you?
Oh, sure. No, I wish they would. I hope they do.
You must meet the profile better.
I like to practice my rights. I mean, no, you may not search my vehicle.
I've never been, asked that going down there. I would say no also.
I say no all the time. At the checkpoint, you have a little less of a right to protection regarding the search and seizure. But if the police pull you over during a traffic stop or something and say, they always get you with, any bombs in the car? Any guns, any knives, anything illegal? Anything I should know about? Well, no. Well, then you don't mind if I search, then do you? No, yes, I do. I do mind. But most people at that point will say, no, go ahead, because I have nothing to hide.
Well, it's amazing, because I've been doing, federal criminal checkpoint cases and all that for I don't know how many, right? Long time. And everybody always, even if they've got a truck full of marijuana or whatever,
yeah, exactly.
they always say, "Yeah, you can search." Like, like, what's the upside in that?
Why
I don't
did you
know.
do that,
I mean, this cartel isn't educating their people very well about how to.
They were going to find it anyway. Is what I hear all the time. It's like, why did you let them search the vehicle, Raul? And why didn't you have license plates on the vehicle? You're traveling without. You think you put placas on your vehicle? They're in Robstown. They get the guy, but they're like, well, they were going to find it anyway. Criminals, drivers. That's why I like representing these guys because they understand. Hey, they get caught. Well, they're going to do some time or something. They're not hard to work with in that regard. Some people, are not like that. But these guys are professional criminals in the sense of they're not professionals, but they're used to it. They know what happens when you get arrested or whatever. So they go do their time. But yeah, I mean, never consent to a search ever. It makes no sense. If you think about it, why consent? They're looking for things in your vehicle that are going to take your vehicle away from you, put you in the penitentiary, and now you're going to be a felon. It's what they're looking for. So it's unreasonable for you to say yes to that.
Well, and I have known people that, I've known other people that refuse. I've never been asked.
But I have nothing to hide. Well, good. I'm glad you have nothing to hide. That does not mean you need to consent to a search.
Well, and then you never know.
Well,
what if somebody threw something in there? Okay, there's a pill there. Okay, I don't know.
And good people are raised to respect the law. Respect police. The police officer. I'm going to tell him yes. I want to help him. Because he helps me. Which that's changing. Okay, cops are not necessarily there to help you. They're there to arrest you and put you in the penitentiary. And they asked me that at the checkpoint.
Well, that's their job, right?
They go, you know what we're trying to do here, sir?
I mean, if that was my job, then I'd be trying to bust people too.
Well, that's not their job, though. See, they believe now that their job is to protect and to serve the community.
Well, that's all right.
And now they say my job's to go home at the end of the day to my wife and kids. Well, then get another job, because you're there. Yeah. You're the front line. You wear a shield because you need to protect these people who don't have a shield. You are their shield. And cops are like, I'm not going to take a bullet for it. A lot of them like that these days. Still, there are some who see it as a calling, who are out there like that and are doing the job as it ought to be done. But then now we get these new guys who it's a job, and they're getting a paycheck, and that's another
I don't know that it's a new thing. I think that if you look that some of these jobs, like being a fireman or being a police officer in New York, they had like an Irish monopoly, I think, in New York for years. That it was a political job by a political boss.
They were crooked too. They were crooked as heck. The New York, guys. Remember what was that movie? Al Pacino is one of the greatest history teachers you can have. You watch Al Pacino movies, you'll learn a lot. And he was in Serpico. Yeah, man. He was a good cop. True. He was a good cop.
And that was generally true. The Serpico was a good cop.
Yeah, it was a true story.
Incorruptible. And then there were scandals after that as well, too. There was a movie that was called Prince of the City that was done in the 80s. It was a little bit lower key that someone similar, a whistleblower, and they have a lot of corruption, I guess, with the police force in New York City. I don't know. Do you think there's corruption in police forces in these smaller communities?
There's corruption everywhere. I mean, we don't want to face that. We don't want to look at that. But I mean, of course, think about it. There's corruption everywhere. Power corrupts. I mean, total power corrupts. It's a corrupting force. It happens. Like this Whitey Bulger guy. How do you get away with it for long? We had a brother who was in the Senate or whatever. I mean, these criminals have families. They're not. The whole family's not criminal. They've got connections.
Whitey Bulger, you're talking about that East Coast. I think he was
Boston,
kind of affiliated with an Irish
Stone
mob.
Cold
He was
killer.
an informer. He was an FBI informer the entire time he was killing people, etc. Correct?
Yes.
And that's what was terrible. He continued to kill people, etc.
Our government supports a lot of bad people.
Because,
I mean, this drug trafficking, for instance, CIA. I mean, so many killers and drug traffickers are protected because they are a CIA asset. The CIA needs them. In Afghanistan, this general, 93% of the world's opium is produced in Afghanistan. Okay, heroin is made from opium. All our narcotics, pain medication from the hospitals comes from opium. They're opiates. 93% is manufactured in Afghanistan. So then the Taliban took over, and the Taliban we hate because they're just despicable people who pour acid on a girl trying to get an education because she's female. So they disfigure her. That's disgusting. That's a fact. but they are against drugs. So they stomped out all the opium production. Our government lied and said the Taliban's making money from drug trade. No, they're not. The fact was, no, they did away with, they destroyed all the crops of the farmers that were building the opium, making the opium. So
and then there are some indicate. Obviously, I think everything that you said is verifiable. That's all
true.
verifiable.
It's
true.
shocking.
And then we went into Afghanistan, arguably for false pretenses, under the idea that Bin Laden was there, and he wasn't there, and he hadn't been there, I don't believe. And so we went in there, and now the that opium poppy fields are going great guns.
We invaded the north first because that's where it was farmed, the north, the Northern Alliance. And the Northern Alliance was composed of drug traffickers. You know, these were our allies. And you see this throughout history. I mean, war makes strange bedfellows, you know. But, I mean, we go hand in hand with all these traffickers. So right away the opium production began again. But you think, well, where would we be without that opium? I mean, how about people in hospitals who need surgery? I mean, where are we going to get the drugs to sedate them? It's not just heroin and the illegal drug trade that opium is a main source for the pain medication that we have. So, you know, I can see the other edge of the sword. Like, well, wait, you know, we need that. You know, where would we be without our pain medication? You know, it's like with this methamphetamine scourge. It's another thing. I don't know if you remember Quaaludes. I saw a movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. It had.
I mean, I've heard of this stuff. Quaaludes and pills, and this was never in my purvey of being a college graduate.
What kind of college experience did you have?
Well, I mean, no, I mean, there was, you know, this is in the 70s, marijuana. I think I heard of one person taking speed. I didn't know what any of this stuff was. This wasn't in my purvey.
100 million Americans have sampled marijuana. I read that the other day.
Well, that was out there, and it was in plain view, most dorms, et cetera. But this stuff, nobody ever came up to me and said, "Oh, what a lewd." I read this stuff in books, but I never knew that.
The jargon there, lewd. I know.
Yeah, I read it. I don't know.
You
know, you read this stuff.
Quaaludes were a big drug of choice back then. You won't find one today. Why not? Because the then President Ford or President Nixon appointed a drug czar to get rid of them. He goes, "Hey, look, this is hurting America. Get rid of it." So that drug czar went to India, went to China, where the precursor chemicals that go into Quaaludes are produced, and told India and China, stop producing it, we'll give you incentive, whatever, just stop making it, please, okay? They agreed, they stopped making it. Quaaludes disappeared, you know. President Clinton appointed that very same man to do the same thing to methamphetamine. Ice, crystal ice, speed, this stuff that, you know, people are able to make in these meth labs. Go to India, go to China, tell them to stop making ephedrine or epinephrine, which is a precursor chems to meth. Well, he went and did that, and it was going to go through for China and India agreed, just like we did with the Quaaludes. Okay, same guy, same deal. Okay. Our pharmaceutical company said, hey, wait a minute. Sudafed, Comtrex, you know how many billions of dollars we make off this stuff? That uses the same precursor chems. We need that stuff. So we have, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of Americans addicted on cold medicine. So no.
Well, the pseudoephedrine, though, now to get it, you've got to go through a big song and dance. Here's my driver's license, because they use the Sudafed to make the crystal meth.
To get a machine gun, you got to go through a big song and dance, you know. But it's not. I mean, the problem would have been gone. I mean, how many young children are affected by meth? But
I have heard. I think it was Mark Skirka and someone else said on the show that since they've made pseudoephedrine harder to get, that there's less crystal meth. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know.
The war on drugs, I mean, that's not true.
You know, one thing,
it's easier to get drugs today than any other.
You want to hear something from a street perspective? I'm pretty sure this is
from the street. You're going to give it to me from the street.
From a practicing street lawyer.
Oh, okay.
Before, when I represented people on crystal meth, they'd be dead or go missing before you could ever get them in a court. You know, they'd be either one. Now, I think they've changed up how they make it, because now it doesn't seem like they'll be dead or missing. In other words, I think they weakened it somehow, so you could do it and you could keep taking it. No. I don't know if that's true.
Of course not. It's not true.
You don't think that's
They don't
true?
make drugs weaker over time. People like them, they make them stronger. You know, they make it more potent.
Well, I don't think they want to kill off their. I don't think.
How would they get killed?
I don't think they want to kill off.
Who would die? How would they die?
I think they. You don't think?
I think they're just super paranoid and disappeared into the woods, like Mick Dodge or whoever that guy is out there. You know, show me a body and then we can talk. Okay, well, they obviously dead, but if they just disappeared, they're just running from the law.
I do represent people that are still living, though, that did, you know, use crystal meth, etc.
Nobody ever died from an amphetamine overdose, from what I understand. Okay, take this crystal meth. You take a dose, 2 doses, it won't kill you. Okay, you may go crazy, whatever. It won't kill. A dose of cocaine can kill you. Lynn Bias was a big example of that. One snort, one sniff, you can die. It can kill an elephant.
Well,
it's true. I mean, and methamphetamine.
So you for the
No, I'm for the facts, the truth. I understand. And this is truck drivers. This is what the truck drivers take: speed, little white pills. You know, my eyes are open wide. 6 days on the road. This is what they ingest. It's coffee. It's a super coffee. Diet pills. It's what your mom was taking in the 70s to stay slim. You know, that's what amphetamines are. You know, it's that class of drugs. People really don't. You don't see death as a result of overdosing from these drugs. You overdose, you might lose, you go crazy, psychosis, things of that nature, which are equally bad perhaps. But then, you know, it's a myth that you'll die from it. But what is a problem, and is very serious, is that young people, their minds, until you reach the age of 25, your brain is still in a developmental phase. These amphetamines, the dopamine, the things, they work on the brain. And young children they fall prey to amphetamine. It becomes everything to them. I mean, the addiction is real. It's like there's nothing else in life that matters but the next hit of methamphetamine or amphetamine. It's poor things, these poor children. They can't, and that is a scourge in America. And, you know, the other side of it is, like, people can make this at their home with these chemicals. You have to have some sort of chemistry background, I think, but it's easily made, and the government, you know, the fact of the matter is our government is involved in drug trafficking. You know, they are. Cocaine, marijuana, our government's involved in those shipments that come up. We see Noriega, Panama, all these things. Methamphetamine, if I can make that out in the woods, the government can't really do anything to get their hands on it before I sell it. So they can't get, essentially, their cut, essentially. So I think that was a big factor in the government's campaign to show how bad meth is. It's not cocaine. It's not heroin. Those are bad drugs. Crack, you know, that could kill you, like, on the spot. Meth can't do that, but meth will ruin your life, of course. Not just your teeth, but your whole life. You'll be ruined because you're addicted, and it's very highly addictive.
That's an interesting angle that you're saying the government is primarily enforcing drug laws or creating drug laws against drugs that they don't get a cut out of.
It's very cynical.
I've never heard that or read that.
Well, it's cynical, but the facts are they control the drug trade. They control the drug. Of course they do. If you're the government, you're going to want to control the drug trade. I think they should have taken the attitude of we need to eradicate drugs. A lot of Americans believe that that's what law enforcement is really trying to do. But they're not trying to eradicate drugs, because if they were, drugs would be eradicated. We're America. I mean, we could stop people at our borders if we want to.
There have been studies that state, though, that Homo sapiens, whatever, the human being, is a drug-taking animal and always has been.
America was founded on getting high. There's no doubt about it. That's why we came here. In England, in the old days, you couldn't drink. No, it's true. Like you look.
My grandparents didn't come here to get high. I don't think so. I guess it just depends.
The founding father. I mean, in England, you couldn't drink. Gin was out. Gin was illegal. Scotch was legal. Scotch whiskey, but gin was illegal. Why? Because Scotch whiskey was for the more upper class. You know, gin was for the poor man. They didn't want you getting drunk and causing all kinds of riot. So, John Hancock was a rum runner. He was a Pablo Escobar of his day. You know, President Washington retired to open up his distillery at Mount Vernon. These guys, I mean, the tax on bootlegging, the term bootlegging came from back then. You know, America was founded on getting high, which means what? Being free, having freedom, not necessarily ingesting a drug and making your brain, you know, intoxicated.
Isn't there a alternative like some sort of a Protestant work ethic or sobriety ethic, which resulted, of course, in the in the passage of prohibition, wherein alcohol was prohibited? Isn't there another side to it, wherein, you know, well, even drinking and as through the Baptist, don't take one drink, don't, you know, there's another side to it though too.
Alcohol is terrible. I mean, you can have one drink. Mm-hmm. I quit drinking when I was 32. I'm 44 now. I quit drinking because it's just drug. It's bad. You know, for me, it was. Some people can drink and they're fine. Me, we drink. We're gonna, you know. Yeah. I could see what was coming health wise and trouble wise. So like, I quit. I got lucky. But like, that's something you grow up with from a very early age. Mm-hmm. In this culture where we live in South Texas, is everybody drinks, you know. As a child, your dad will have you go get the beer, and he'll let you finish the remnants of his beer. You're 7 years old, you know, and they laugh, and mijo, my boy, like, you know, it's a thing.
I've heard that in some of the Mexican American culture that does.
No, it's why I've seen white people doing it too, and Italians or whatever. Everybody does it.
I don't know. I had never seen that. In my personal experience.
For a toothache, you know, they rub, you know, liquor on the child's tooth.
Well,
I never saw that.
Well, I don't think that's a good idea. You know.
No, me neither, of course.
I don't think it's a good idea to
anything in moderation is okay for you. That's the bottom line on that stuff. It's like in moderation.
Actually, an interesting anecdote though. You can be underage and drink if you're with your parent or an adult in the state of Texas.
21 under 21, welcome with parent.
That's unusual, right? I don't think that's even known that widely.
No, it's not. It's not because, but then again, you know, that could bring families closer together, couldn't it? You know what I mean? It could be something positive if they advertise that under 21, welcome with parent. You know. But you don't want to
the main problem with alcohol isn't the alcohol; it's if you become an alcoholic, if you abuse it, right?
The problem with alcohol is it'll get you drunk.
Even though I mean this may be controversial to say, even marijuana. Well, what's the big deal if you use it once a week or once a month?
America. You know. The whole thing about being free, being American is it's up to you to choose. It's not up to the government, who I know is a liar. We've proven this through Watergate, all these things. I know they're liars, okay, and they're telling me what's good for me. How am I going to believe them? You know, I can't. It's up to you to decide what's good for you. You're an individual. That's what America was about. That's what when I say America was founded on getting high, that's what I mean. It's your choice, America. But they're trying to take those choices away from you more and more by saying, this is bad for you. And what have we learned? If you get old enough, over time, you'll see, like, well, 20 years ago, they were saying that was just the bee's knees, or it was just the best thing for me. And now they're showing how it causes colon cancer or something, you know. So, I mean, trust yourself, trust your instinct. You can't trust Washington. You just can't trust them when it comes to, you know, your health. You can't.
Well, basically, you're kind of insinuating that the media and all, the government doesn't come out and tell you nothing, do they?
Sure they do.
I mean, I thought
I can't smoke at a restaurant because it's killing people. And it's like, well, hell, it's killing me too. You know, but why can't I smoke? That's the government telling you. That's the government. Mm-hmm. I mean, remember the old days in Congress, you'd see pictures or video of Congress in the 70s. Everybody's smoking. All the senators, it's just full of smoke. And now, you know. So
you don't think this is better? You think it's better now?
Sure, I do. But you also have to look at what role the media did play in advertising. And as a child, you have candy cigarettes. I don't know if you remember those.
I remember those.
Yeah, you'd have candy cigarettes. All candies look like little pills. You know, it's like, what are we training our kids to do? You know, this is deep. It goes back into the culture. In Mexico City, for instance, toy guns have been outlawed. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, and I was telling Roy earlier, the number one game we played was guns.
Yeah.
We'd go around playing guns.
Of course.
And that's not a game. You know, it's like, you look back at it now, it's kind of odd. But that's what we would do.
Well, it looks odd in that perspective, but the purvey of guns and killing and murder through the video games is tremendous now.
By the ninth grade, a child in America has witnessed 50,000 deaths or killings, whether real or simulated.
Yeah, and the murders and killings in TV is extraordinary.
50,000 by the time you're 9, you're desensitized to death. I mean, go see somebody actually get blown up or killed, and man, you will change. It was quite different.
Well, and then what's interesting is the government doesn't seem to have a big angle against all the violence, etc., on television or in the media, do they? They don't really seem to take a stand.
Europeans come over here and they're shocked at what America puts on TV and doesn't put on their TV. In Europe, nudity, for instance, is more. It's okay. It's acceptable. Here, you know, some lady flashes a part of her at the Super Bowl and it's, oh my gosh, like, oh, you know, the sky's falling type stuff. But you know, all this violence, you can show a body get blown up or blown apart, and that's okay. You know, when I was a kid, they show hunting videos have become the norm now. When I was a child, you couldn't show an animal actually getting shot. You could show the shooter, you could show the animal, you could show the dead animal, you know, and the shooter with it. Now they show the impact of the bullet, of where the arrow goes and things. And, you know, that's not right. You know, it's not right.
Well, then you're advocating a form of censorship that you're saying that we're Americans, we should have the right to...
No, I'm advocating a form of decency, you know. That's what I'm advocating, not censorship, but decency. Like, you know, what's right and what's wrong? What should we be putting out there? Sensationalist stuff that, oh, people, did you see that? Or no, it should have decency in it. Not necessarily morals or nothing, but what's decent, what's respectable, what's respectful of the animal, of the culture, of the person. You know, and that's just giving way to sensationalism. what's cool or what the audience wants. You know, we're turning into those Romans.
Well, there was a lot of, there was, when I was growing up in the movie and televisions, everything was pretty much censored. I personally don't have a big problem with censorship myself. Now, maybe it was a bit extreme.
Well, like
when
for
I was
instance,
a kid,
a black man giving a kiss to a white woman, and that's censored. You know, they couldn't have that. I forget who the first one was to do that, but that was like, oh, you know.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
What is that? Why censor that?
Well,
how far back does that go?
Because,
they're going to steal all our women and stuff. Like,
well, at that time, I think in that reality, you had whatever it was, whoever the original founders, English, it's whatever, Scotch, and Germanic people, they came over here and they had a white culture, and blacks were brought over as slaves. These whatever Anglo or white people thought that racial purity or something was some importance to them. Now, it's easy to go back and to judge them and say how awful that was morally, but that's all they knew. You know, this is funny. It's true though. My grandfather used to, when he saw a black person on television, and he was from Italy, he was like amazed. I mean,
I never saw a black person.
There were black people in Italy. You know, would you see them? So, you know, to say that, and I'm not saying he was prejudiced in any way because I don't really know that.
Everybody's prejudiced.
I don't know that he was really prejudiced in any way, but I mean, obviously, in his view, these people were quite a bit different than him. So I don't know that necessarily it's easy to go backwards and to base someone on your cultural and social knowledge and bias of this time.
Well, yeah, it's real easy for me to go say Hitler was wrong today, sure. But hell, he was wrong, okay? I mean, bottom line, slavery was wrong. Bottom line, I mean, it's just...
Well, absolutely.
It's wrong.
Actually, I had a priest the other day who was telling me that he thought the church really, and he's very conservative, he said that he didn't think the church was responsible when there was slavery, that they should have done more or done something. So that's true. There's things objective. Of course, there were people against slavery, too.
What's right's right, what's wrong's wrong. It's been like that that does not change. I don't care. It's not Monday morning quarterback for me to say, that's wrong. Hey, that's wrong today. It's wrong yesterday. It's going to be wrong tomorrow. It's going to be forever wrong. Murder, rape, slavery, oppression. These things are always wrong and will always be wrong. You can't accept them. Slavery in Roman times was like, well, I got a servant, really. It's really more like maids. That's what those slaves were. There wasn't a whipping. There wasn't a killing. There wasn't breaking up of families. They weren't treated like cattle. I mean, slavery changed. Like, we'd go to war, we'd catch these guys, but they're going to be our slaves. In other words, they're our cheap labor. There's a guy from Mexico working for $10 a day and room and board. We pay him much less than that. That's what slavery really was in the old days. But this slave trade, this African slave trade, that was very different. I mean, because it was brutal. Death, murder, people dying on the boat, being thrown overboard. It's evil incarnate, and there's no doubt about it. Totally evil. And so I'd be upset too.
It's evil, but it's also true that it wasn't only the
well, of course,
European.
Everybody has. There's everybody to blame.
Sure,
the blacks were, the Africans were doing it.
The BBC, sure. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Company loves to promote every day that there's still slavery in Africa, and I don't know if they love to say it because it takes the guilt off of the English or whatever, but they love to say there's still slavery in Africa today. So everybody had their hands in some guilt in this, right?
No matter what. Ignorance is no defense either. Well, that's all we knew. Well, man, you need to know better, period. I don't give a shit. You just need to know better. You don't treat people that way. We're all people. I think that when it comes to race, Mexican's not a race. A lot of people say Mexican. No, that's not a nationality. Race is like
an American isn't a race. The Americas are populated by, I guess the only arguably indigenous people would be the Indians in the Americas, pretty much. The indigenous.
Look what we did to those people. We came over here, decimated the population, killed it in the name of manifest destiny. I mean, and we want to point our fingers at all these other countries.
Well, we want to point our fingers too, but a lot of people want to point our fingers now. But we're living here.
Well,
it's not like we were leaving.
And I'm saying that's the past. There's nothing we can do about it. But let's do that in the future. Let's recognize what's right's right and what's wrong's wrong, and we need to do things and elect leaders who see it our way. Like Giuliani the other day, pointing the finger at Obama, saying he doesn't love America.
Well,
what kind of crap is that? Who cares? Come on.
Well, first of all, why is he in a position to state that?
Because he's not.
He's implying that he's the only one that loves it, or is he implying that that he has a position, that he's in a position to judge? And Love, how's he going to? He's implying that
I sent America flowers last week. What the hell you mean I don't love her? She was my Valentine. How can you say I don't love her? That's despicable. Well, Giuliani's been out of the public eye lately, and he's always loved the public eye. So this is another way for him to get in front of the cameras again.
He's a little bit questionable too, Giuliani. I think if you look,
the guy stomped out the mob in New York as a prosecutor. That took some.
And then I heard a mobster personally tell me that wasn't true. I don't know, but I agree. From what I've seen,
hey, Sir Rudy, he's a knight. Don't forget.
I heard a mobster personally tell me that was here on parole. That's a misconception about Giuliani. But having said that, what I've read, I agree with you.
He is a knight.
He did largely stamp out organized crime in America. And let me tell you something, though, that's another issue. They eradicated so many civil liberties in the attempt, and they created RICO, R-I-C-O.
Oh gosh, everybody's guilty of that. If
RICO, they created that, which is really an ethnic slur. RICO, I mean the name, the anagram.
RICO, suave.
Yeah. No. But so they created that. The issue is though, is sometimes I think we'd be better off with the crime, whether it's organized crime or the dealer, than the repeal of the liberties.
Right here in South Texas, the Duke of Duval, George Parr, corrupt as corrupt could be. He involved with murder, involved with killing lawmen. They were investigating, burning down the courthouse when they got too close. But corruption worked. That's what the people are saying. Like, well, sure, it worked. But the law came in and changed things. Now we're poor. Everybody's impoverished. In the old days, George Parr, if you're his friend. You're sick. He'll give his car. He'll drive you to the hospital. Give you money, even though it's your money. He's giving it back to you. Corruption worked.
LBJ has been accused. How well documented it is specifically of those exact things.
Well, sure. This is politics. This is Texas. That's the way it is.
Well, that's what dark. There's a word I've just heard it recently. Dark politics.
It's all dark.
Murder.
It's all dirty.
Drug trade. Payola. That's dark politics.
Yep.
And there's a lot of it, right?
I studied like I said, I studied political science. I read the politics, these things by Aristotle, Plato, the Republic, these things of what politics was intended to do and for the people. And it's nothing like that, of course. Now it seems to be doing for the politician and his people who are corporations backing him with major donations. So it's very corrupt. I mean, it's changed. That Supreme Court case that came out, what's it called, where they allow political action committees to no limit on their donations. Mm-hmm. So like a political action committee can donate $1 billion to this guy.
That's a series of questionable acts by the Supreme Court, whether it goes back to a corporation's a person, right. Person's entitled to unlimited free speech, money is the equivalent of free speech, therefore corporations who are a person are entitled to give unlimited money to politicians. Sure. Now, if that's not a questionable series of decisions.
I mean, who are you going to listen to, a guy who gave you $1 billion or a guy who gave you $27? You're not going to, the American voter no longer matters because, hey, DuPont gave me, I need to listen to them.
But since but isn't the American system working about 100 times better than what the Mexican?
I love the American system. Yes, no doubt. It's the best system out there.
100 times better. It's the Mexican political system.
It's the most beautiful system out there, based on its principles, on its foundation. But it has become, because it was so beautiful, the facelifts, it looks like Bruce Jenner today. Okay, is what happened. It used to be so beautiful, so pristine, so fundamentally right. It was the right thing. In America, and to be an American, it was to be a good thing in the old days. You could travel the planet, the globe, and you were respected. Nobody's going to kidnap you or hurt you because you're an American. And America meant, it still means what it means, but what in practice, we need to really
I don't know if it means that much to be an American citizen. Of course, I mean, things are always changing, but there was a time when I was growing up at a certain point, maybe it was the 60s and 70s, when to be an American citizen, you did have certain rights and they were protected, and a police officer, I don't think, was prone to commit violence against you, et cetera. I think there was a golden period, and I'm thinking we have, with the Patriot Act, et cetera, and some of the actions of the police officers, I do think we've gone backwards a bit.
My mom grew up in the 50s. That's the time to have grown up. How beautiful it was in the 1950s for small towns in America. It really was.
If you weren't a black guy.
Well, sure.
If you weren't You get lynched. You was all right.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, yeah.
But right.
There was a period where
there was a big downside in that period.
Well, if you're a minority, minorities have always been oppressed. That's a democracy, where the majority rules, and you have to count on the majority being kind, and they're not. Okay, they're in power now,
well,
and they remember how you treated them.
But then there's an opposite side, where in the minority is becoming oppressive to the majority. So you have the majority saying, "Well, look, I'm against homosexual marriage or whatever," and the minority saying, "Well, we want it," and then they're passing it. The majority saying, "Well, we're being oppressed because the minority is given more power than the majority." That's the other side.
But the majority rules, so the minority can have whatever. The majority is going to rule. And with same-sex marriage, well, isn't all marriage same-sex? The guy says, and I think that's about, that is all same-sex every day if you're married. I'm a single guy.
I thought you said maybe
it's all same-sex.
Homo sapien,
Homo sapien sapien.
Homo
We've
sapien
evolved to another sapien level. But yeah, I'm a gay marriage. I'm gay guy, gay girl. I mean, get married all they want together. I don't care. But we need to change the definition of marriage is what we need to do, because marriage to me is a man and a woman. So we just need to change that to something else. So these homosexual couples, male and male, female, can, share the same rights, the same privileges, the same everything that a man and a woman who are married share. But you need to change the definition or something. Not really change the definition of marriage. You need to make a new term for it, because that's not marriage. Because marriage has traditionally been defined as man and woman. They change. That's the problem with our government. They'll change the definition of torture to suit them. They just change. You can't change definitions. I'm a debater. I grew up my life debating. Definitions are everything. Definitions control the entire debate. You can't just change a definition to suit you. And that's what these presidents would do. Like Hitler appointed all these people, all these lawyers to change the definitions of things. Well, what defines a citizen? What part? And Bush did it with Attorney General Gonzalez. They changed the definition of combatant, POW, torture. And that's where you start making the fatal errors that are going to come back. Your chickens are going to come home to roost, because you've changed who you are, essentially. You're selling out. You're saying that that's okay now when yesterday that wasn't okay, because now it's legal. Just because something's legal doesn't make it okay. Just because something's illegal doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, too, by the same token.
I'm sure you've seen some of that rebranding just since you've been practicing and different, I'm sure I think we've all seen, some of those issues specifically, but I guess we're running out of time, unfortunately, and we didn't talk about the CIA drug deals. You mean the fact that they're de facto importers of cocaine from Mexico killed Kiki? Who's Kiki?
Kiki Camarena. He was a DEA agent for Northern Mexico, American agent working in Mexico. A good cop, the kind of guy you looked up to, doing the job out there, trying to fight wrong, for all the right reasons. He discovered the connection between our government and the drug traffickers over there. He came to Washington, reported it to his bosses, saying, "This is what's going on." 2 weeks later, he's dead.
I told somebody on the internet the other day, I said, be very careful about this expose. I said, it's the whistleblower that always pays. It's the whistleblower that always pays. I wanted to thank you for coming on, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Had a good time.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank God for whistleblowers.